The STEM learning ecosystems and the STEM Push Network are pleased to be tackling important issues concerning minoritized students in STEM disciplines in higher education. The following excerpts are from a webinar held in August 2020 with members of the STEM Push Network. The full webinar can be found on www.stemecosystems.org.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. We're really happy to see all of you today and to launch a discussion about critically important questions concerning the college admissions process. Well, we'll undoubtedly discuss a lot of questions today. I'm first going to ask the big one, and it's kind of a rhetorical question. Why don't rich, stimulating, and transformative experiences in out-of-school STEM pre-college programs have greater impact on college admission decisions? In other words, how can we ensure that these critical experiences we know are helping our young people learn and grow, become part of the decision criteria for universities?
I have the pleasure of being the person that gets to tell you all about the STEM Push Network, a little bit about why and how we started the work, and hope to tell you a little bit about what we have planned and how we hope to accomplish it. And so as everybody knows, lack of racial and ethnic diversity in STEM is a national problem. And so in response, colleges, universities, organizations from across the nation have developed out-of-school time pre-college STEM programs for high school students as a solution. And these pre-college programs engage and prepare traditionally minoritized students in STEM fields through experiences that impart the skills, abilities, habits of mind that we know are predictive of success in STEM. And through a variety of assessment metrics, we've known for years that these pre-college STEM programs work. But the problem is that the diversity that we see in the pre-college STEM programs is not matched in undergraduate STEM majors, even sometimes at institutions that host those pre-college STEM programs. And that was my experience and how I got into this work. So I designed and ran a pre-college STEM program for years in which urban high school students would work in my lab to advance a current research project from our university. So we take part of an ongoing project from a lab. The deal is that the lab stops working on it for the summer. The pre-college program gets it, advances the work over the course of the summer, and then at the end of the summer, all of the data, products go back to the lab for further study. So they pick it up from there. And so you might imagine when we first suggested this program and the program first started, scientists at the university were super skeptical about the fact that high school students were able to contribute in any real way to their current science, let alone advance it, for the lab. But years later, we actually have a wait list now of labs who want the program to take on a project from their lab. And that's because every year, these high school students are able to advance the work. So to be able to do that, the students have to learn to think analytically. They have to learn how to develop and test multiple hypotheses, to think about appropriate controls for experiments, to analyze data and results. They have to be able to communicate that science effectively. So writing skills, presentation skills, they have to learn a ton of background content to be able to understand the project and be able to contribute to it. And through this process, they develop strong relationships with mentors at the university. And all of that then contributes to their ability to advance science that's happening on our campus. But despite the success of the program, all of these unbelievable accomplishments of the students, one of the things that we were noticing was that this work was not helping to propel students in their own personal academic journeys. And so to be specific, I saw this with my students of color that were in the program. And so they were spectacular by every possible metric. But their accomplishments in the lab and to our academic community were not being considered by admissions. And what it came down to is they were being triaged out of the queue by SAT scores. And so nobody even knew about the program and their accomplishments and all of that. And so it turns out that this is far too common. So university admissions practices often rely heavily on standardized test scores, which have been shown multiple times to be culturally and racially biased. We're going to build both a powerful collaborative improvement space using a networked improvement community model or NIC model, and a next generation, we're calling it a next generation accreditation model that will serve as a mechanism for communicating the power of pre-college programs to admissions. I'd like to say that all of this work is embedded within the STEM learning ecosystem community of practice and is being done in conjunction with the National Science Foundation's Coordination Hub, and again, brings together key partners from relevant sectors, accreditation sectors, access and admissions, STEM fields, but it keeps pre-college STEM programs right at the heart of all of this. I would also like to mention that this is also founded on a research agenda that will work to validate pre-college STEM programs outcomes on broadening participation, contribute to the field of knowledge for NICs, and sort of spread pre-college STEM program effective strategies and structures. So work has just started this year, and we're starting with 17 pre-college STEM programs that are clustered in 4 urban ecosystems as a start: New York City, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and the San Francisco Bay Area. The STEM learning ecosystem community of practice will identify new urban ecosystems to scale the work to include 10 during the course of this project. And we will work within those ecosystems to identify additional pre-college STEM programs so that hopefully by the end of the next 4 to 5 years, we have about 40 pre-college programs that have become accredited. And so I'm happy to be accompanied by 2 of my colleagues who can tell you more about this work from the STEM push from the ecosystem and pre-college program perspectives. But I wanted to start off just by giving you a general overview of sort of what the initiative looks like.
At the end of the day, what we're doing, I think, has to work for students. It has to be in their interest, something they can navigate successfully and ultimately achieve their educational outcomes and goals. So I always try and bring us back to that. The other concern for me is being a constant advocate for high quality pre-college STEM programs. We have a number of opportunities, fortunately, in our region and in our communities for students, but they have varying degrees of quality and varying levels of outcomes and objectives. So if we're going to better serve students, then it really is important, I think, to work with that community to ensure that we're providing the best opportunities for them that we possibly can. And that, to me, is really ensuring that folks have the benefit of the learning from an initiative like this to inform and improve their own practice. The third area for me that is really a priority is how do we create the support structures for successful pre-college STEM programs? And in my experience, a lot of that hinges on both institutional policies and resources and funding, particularly from the state. And one of the things that I've encountered over my time in higher education is both university systems and individual college campuses. They have a range of priorities that they're facing. And sort of our crisis isn't necessarily their crisis. So what can I do to push this work sort of further up that list of priorities and be as effective as the other constituencies who are advocating for their own initiatives? Because ultimately, I think for this to be successful, institutions need to see this work as central to their mission and to their goal of serving students, particularly those students who are from underserved groups and are underrepresented within our higher educational system. And that really sort of ties into ensuring that we have equity and access. And certainly the goal of this program is to ensure that we have greater diversity within those students who are pursuing and, most importantly, earning STEM majors. But we want to make sure, I think, that all students have that opportunity available to them, not just those that have already sort of demonstrated a level of aptitude or have already committed to being a STEM student, if you will, because I think we have sort of this untapped potential with a lot of kids who may not know that they have this passion within them and that they can do it, that they have the ability to be successful. And to me, a pre-college STEM program can be sort of the door that opens that up to them. And quite honestly, from my perspective, even if they're successful outside of STEM, if they're successful in post-secondary, to me, that's a win. To the extent that we can provide other opportunities for students to have something that they can do that benefits them in the college admissions process, I think is incredibly valuable. So that partnership between folks who traditionally have been kind of in the outreach environment within higher education, connecting more strongly and deeply with the admissions and eligibility partners, I think is incredibly important. And then here again, this notion of providing access to all students, for me is something I keep trying to come back to in this work. I think particularly as we look at what's happening with college admissions generally, the debate that's happening right now around SAT, ACT, certainly in our state, whether or not we have an alternative assessment for college admissions or no assessment and go completely test optional, then if something like a pre-college STEM program is elevated in the admissions process, then I really think it's incumbent upon us to ensure that there's ideally universal access. So all students can benefit from these programs if they want to, and then pursue their post-secondary goals. If we don't have that access, then I worry we potentially further exacerbate the opportunity gap where students have access to some resources and not others. And I think that's been a constant theme throughout our conversations in this work, and one that I'm quite honestly very pleased with. What can you do now? I think reach out to the pre-college STEM programs in your area and start to build those relationships now. Again, for us, we have tens, if not hundreds of programs, and we're actively trying to engage with them and doing that sooner rather than later. Find out what you can do to support those programs, find out what I think they need now, and see if that's something that you can provide for them. I would say also for those who, and even those who are not located on a college or university campus, reach out to the university admissions office and the student affairs and outreach offices now. Don't assume that admissions, and I don't mean this in any disparaging way to my higher education colleagues, but don't assume that admissions is necessarily in constant contact with those who are focused on outreach and student affairs. So help foster and facilitate those partnerships. And then as Allison mentioned, there's potential for growth here. So prepare now for the next cohort of those pre-college STEM programs and STEM ecosystems to participate in this effort, because I think you will be very pleased in the opportunities that are afforded here and what you can learn to help better serve and benefit students. So I will wrap up there and thank you.
So I wanted to share a little bit about my own personal experience in the PUSH network. First and foremost, it's really challenged my understanding of these systems. Being part of a nationwide effort of this scale has allowed me to get a deeper understanding into all of these stakeholders' needs. And this has really occurred through that sort of transparent and candid information sharing and reflection activity that I was speaking a little bit about before. I also benefit from the sort of centralized relationship management, making connections with my ecosystem partner programs, allowing us to broaden our work by these shared accountability measures, and these regular convenings that are facilitated are really sort of a perk that you cannot go without highlighting. So we all know how the demands of this, not only the transition to virtual program, but some of our regular programming needs can make it hard to grow our networks professionally and also in service to our students. So the hub team's facilitation of that has been really great. And as well, being able to participate in these reflective exercises that have been aiding in the formation of the network's priorities. We talked a little bit, Allison mentioned a little bit about the quality standards, that the network has devised, and taking some time with my own team and my colleagues to take a deep dive and look at our work, but then zoom out and look at how we're moving towards, full execution of these measures has been both professionally enriching and also hopefully enriching to our progress as a program. On the next slide, I talk a little bit about that. So, this summer, with the implications of programming in the context of COVID-19, having this cross-sector learning community was so critical. We took some time at the very beginning of summer to take stock of what was going on in each of our individual programs, take stock of conversations we were having with our youth, and then check back in throughout the summer in order to monitor these sort of high intensity change management cycles. Recently, I spoke with one of my colleagues at Summer STEM at Cooper Union. Elizabeth Walters was talking a little bit about her work with her youth in the context of COVID and this virtual learning. She ended up being able to increase the amount of youth mentors who could participate with her younger staff because of their access and ability to understand some of the programming mechanisms that were already in place, and also their own technological literacy that was able to aid in the growth of her younger youth participants. We also conducted numerous guided self-studies around our own goals, but not just our goals, but our program capacity and the resources that we have in order to move our work forward. So again, as I mentioned at the Hall of Science, we have a alumni coordinator. Many of our, programs in our ecosystem, the alumni would be referred to as the college participants. But our college participants in our program have this connection to this person who can talk to them about their needs and how the college process is going and how they're navigating the change and transition. So conducting this self-study around where we could improve that work and grow that work, but also where we're doing things really well, it has been really great this summer. And the accreditation-like processes that the PUSH network are implementing are allowing us to more effectively partner with colleges as well. Again,
the STEM PUSH network invites you to learn more about its work for systematic change in post-secondary college admissions, to broaden STEM participation by creating a national alliance of accredited pre-college STEM programs. Please visit us at www.stemecosystems.org.